Hi there, it's Susanna Rantanen here. Welcome back to the Story Driven Business podcast. Today's episode wraps up our three-part series on how modern employer branding starts and ends with leadership. In the first part, we talked about shifting the hero role to talent. In the second part, we addressed how to turn fluff into story themes that people actually care about. And today we land on what I believe is one of the biggest untapped levers in modern leadership, the CEO as chief storyteller. Let me start with this. The most powerful person in your employer brand story is the one at the top, whether they like it or not. And when they don't own that role, the story starts to run away from them. So this episode is a call to action for every CEO, founder, managing director out there, and for every comms, HR, and EB bro listening who's trying to get their leader to show up. It's time to own your narrative. You are already the face of your culture. People notice what you post, but they also notice what you don't post. They notice what you stand for and what you stay silent on. So let's make this presence intentional, strategic, and magnetic. Today we're going to talk about what happens when the CEO steps fully into the role of chief storyteller and why narrative power is the new leadership power in the future of work. So here's the problem. Missing leader equals missing belief. Every CEO already tells a story, even if they never post a thing, because silence, that's a story. Corporate jargon, that's his story. Visibility, that's a story too. And here's what happens when the story is missing or unclear. Employees lose the thread. Candidates feel no connection. Stakeholders drift. Culture weakens. Customers choose someone else. Without guiding a narrative, organizations become fragmented. Culture turns into checkbox exercise, and strategy lacks emotional connection. And the truth is, a visible CEO is not about ego, it's about alignment. People want to follow leaders who believe in something and can express that belief in a way that moves others. Now, I'm not saying that CEOs should become influencers. Absolutely not. I am inviting CEOs and founders to become intentional narrators of the company's mission, vision, and culture. In the Magnetic Employer Branding Method, that I write in my book, A Story Driven Employer Branding, we call this narrative leadership. It's when the leader shows up as a guide, sharing real stories that make values, strategy, and purpose tangible. And when I say stories, I don't mean necessarily telling actual stories, but using the story-driven narrative formula of communication in order to position themselves as the guide and their target audience as the hero. So that is the difference between saying we're customer focused versus telling a story when your team went the extra mile for a customer and why that mattered and how it made the employees feel. When leaders communicate like this, people don't memorize values. They start feeling and living them. And this kind of leadership storytelling doesn't have to be constant. It most certainly shouldn't be flashy. It just needs to be credible and consistent and rooted in human experience. Why do I believe that CEOs need to show up personally? Because so many CEOs and founders resist this. I often hear that I don't want to be in the spotlight. The brand should speak, not me. I don't have time for social media. But here's the reality. Today, people don't follow brands. They follow people. And your personal social media profile, especially LinkedIn, is not about, look at me. It's about, here's why we exist. Here's what matters to us. Here's how you can thrive in this company that I lead. It's leadership. It's not about your ego. And when the CEO shows up personally, it signals what the company stands for, what kind of culture you champion, what kind of people you want on this journey, how your values are lived, not laminated. And if you don't show up, others will fill that narrative gap for you. Ex-employees, competitors, media, algorithms, shaping your brand story without your voice. So this is not about being the star. It's about being the guide, clarifying the mission, showing your face. Face matters, setting the tone, aligning the culture. And that is actually exactly what Donald Miller teaches in his narrative positioning. The customer is the hero. You are the guide. And that's exactly where your voice is most powerful. Here's an example of a company. They had a CEO who was humble and low profile. Nothing wrong with that. But he never posted. He avoided public storytelling. He got help to identify his authentic leadership stories, moments that shaped his values, lessons from failure. This is so important to talk about the elephant in the room, talk about the failures, and also talk about the proud moments, seeing talent grow. So he started posting simple human stories on LinkedIn, kind of testing the waters. Internal teams began referencing his words. Recruiters mentioned his posts in the interviews, and recruits actually said that I've noticed those. Culture surveys showed stronger leadership trust. That's a keyword, trust. So that is the ripple effect of narrative leadership. I guess you want to know about, so what should a CEO or founder actually talk about? Now, here's your storytelling toolkit. Founding stories. Why did you start this? What moment changed everything? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And how does the solution look like? And tip here, it's nothing to do with an actual product or service. Leadership moments, hard calls, lessons learned, values in action. Employee spotlight, stories of your team living the culture. Customer impact, stories of how your business made a difference. And future vision, where you're going and why that matters. And then you want to talk about your culture in practice. What values do you look up and love in real life, not on the slide deck? These stories don't have to be TED Talks or essays. They can be short LinkedIn posts, comments in your internal town halls, an onboarding video, a podcast interview, an internal Slack message. What matters is real stories, human tone, consistency, showing up as the face of your brand story, not as the hero, but as the guide. So where should CEOs show up? I think that your leadership story needs to show up where people are listening. So obviously LinkedIn is still the #1 leadership visibility platform, but of course then your internal communications such as newsletters, Slack, videos, onboarding, however you communicate internally. Recruitment marketing is important in campaigns, recruitment campaigns, because we don't believe in employer branding campaigns. So recruitment campaigns, videos for recruitment, podcast, guest spots, things like that. And then your employer branding, content, PR, thought leadership through articles, keynotes, media interviews and such. Even one good story in one good channel can reposition your entire leadership image. Why does this matter in the future of work? Here's why this matters now more than ever. The future of work isn't just hybrid or digital. It's very human. And in human workplaces, people follow stories, not just strategies. And when a CEO leads with the story, the culture becomes more believable, the talent brand becomes magnetic, the organization becomes more aligned, and most importantly, leadership trust grows, engagement deepens, and your business moves forward with clarity. I want to give you a checklist on how to embrace this new role as the chief storyteller. Here's your checklist. So first, define your leadership narrative. What shaped you? What do you believe in as a person in this role? What do you stand for? And what are you against? What are your values, your morals, your ethics? Then you want to connect your narrative to the business mission. Why does the business exist? Who do you serve? And how do you want people to thrive here? And then you'll need to show up consistently on LinkedIn, internally, in interviews, as a guide, not a star. You want to share stories over statements. People forget mission statements. They remember moments. And then be visible, be human. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about being clear, and it's about being human. One human talking to another human. So I want to leave you with this closing thought. If you lead a company, you already have a story. The real question is, are you telling it? Or are you letting others fill in the gaps with assumptions, noise, and missed opportunities? In the modern business world, narrative power is leadership power. When you lead with a story, you create alignment, trust, and magnetism around your brand. And that's the kind of leadership that people want to follow today and in the future of work. If you want to learn more about leading with story, read my book, Story Driven Employer Branding. And if you enjoyed this 3-part series, be sure to subscribe to this podcast and share this episode with the leader who needs to hear it. My name is Susanna Rantanen. Until next time, keep leading with story.